Passage 1. Telling time.
No one knows when people first thought about measuring time. We do know that they measured it by the sun, moon, and stars, and that they first divided time into months, seasons, and years. Later, they began dividing the day into parts, like hours and minutes, and they developed simple technology to help them do this. Today we have much more advanced ways to tell time, and we can measure even tiny parts of a second. A great many things have changed in how people tell time, but not everything. The Sumerians, who lived in the area of present-day Iraq, were the first to divide the day into parts. Then, 5,000 or 6,000 years ago, people in North Africa and the Middle East developed ways to tell the time of day. They needed some kind of clock because by then they had organized religious and social activities to attend. That meant people needed to plan their days and set times for these events. Among the first clocks were Egyptian obelisks. The Egyptians used the movement of an obelisk's shadow to divide the day into morning and afternoon. Later, they placed stones on the ground around the obelisk to mark equal periods of time during the day, the way that numbers do on the face of a clock. That worked fairly well, but people could not carry obelisks with them. They needed something portable. So the Egyptians invented a kind of sundial that is now called a shadow clock. It came into use about 3,500 years ago, around 1500 BCE. There were many types of sundials in Egypt and in other areas around the Mediterranean Sea. All of them, of course, depended on the sun, which was no help in telling time at night. Among the first clocks that did not depend on the sun were water clocks. There were various types of these, too. Some were designed so that drops of water would fall at a constant rate, an unchanging speed, from a tiny hole in the bottom of a container. Others were designed to have a container slowly fill with water, again at a constant rate. It took a certain amount of time for the container to fill up or empty out. However, the flow of water was hard to control, so these clocks were not very accurate, and people still did not have a clock they could put in their pocket. Hourglasses filled with sand had similar problems. In the early 1300s, the first mechanical clocks, machines that measured and told the time, appeared in public buildings in Italy. Around 1500, a German inventor, Peter Henlein, invented a mechanical clock that was powered by a spring. Now clocks were getting smaller and easier to carry, but they still were not very accurate. Then in 1656, the Dutch scientist Christian Huygens invented a clock that was a big step forward. This was the first pendulum clock. A pendulum moves from side to side again and again at a constant rate. Counting the movements of a pendulum was a better way to keep time. Huygens' first pendulum clock was accurate to within 1 minute a day. Developments in clock technology continued as the demand for clocks increased. Clocks were needed for factories, banking, communications, and transportation. Today, much of modern life happens at high speed and depends on having the exact time. We must also have international agreement on what the exact time is. Now we have atomic clocks, the best of which are accurate to about 1/10 of a nanosecond a day. But even with these high-tech clocks, we still measure a year by the time it takes the Earth to go around the sun, just as people did long, long ago. We say that it takes the Earth 365 days for a trip around the sun, but that is not exactly true. A year is actually a little longer, 365.242 days, or 365 days and almost 6 hours. So we generally add a day, February 29th, every 4th year, and we call those years leap years. However, this creates another problem. The extra hours in 4 years actually add up to less than 1 day, so adding a day every 4th year would give us too many days. So when a year ends in 00, like 1800, 1900, or 2000, for example, we don't always make it a leap year. We do it only when we can evenly divide the year by 400, as in 1600 and 2000. Remember that when you set your watch for the year 2100.